Spider-Man is going to be rebooted again. That's right. We had the Tobey Maguire one, then we had the Andrew Garfield one. I thought the second one just absolutely sucked with Electro and Green Goblin. Not good, right? Can we just say not good right off the top?
Not good.
Not good. Did you see it?
No, I mean, I didn't know there was a second. I thought this was the 8th one.
Well, there were the original
fifth
three.
one, technically.
There were the 3 Tobey Maguire ones, and then there was the 2 Andrew Garfield ones.
I can't keep track.
Anyway, they were owned by Sony. Sony had the rights to them, so that's why Spider-Man hasn't been part of the bigger Marvel world, mostly the Avengers and all that. But now Sony and Marvel are going to come together. They're going to reboot this thing. It sounds like Spider-Man is going to jump in a Captain America movie next year, then maybe something with the Avengers, et cetera, et cetera. But the reason I thought this was an interesting story, because it goes to the superhero stuff, which everyone likes talking about, but then also how studios work and how big money controls things. Spider-Man is a Marvel character, so back in the day in the comic books, they had crossovers with no problems. So first, let's just talk about the superhero thing in general, which we've talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you think the superhero movies have just completely gotten out of control? Like, it seems like it's the only thing we can do in America.
I mean, I can't remember if we talked about this last time I was here, actually, but there was a great piece in the LA Times that talked about the Irish potato famine. And the Irish potato famine happened because they became a one-crop economy, and when that one crop dies, you are fucked.
Yeah.
So I think that Hollywood needs to watch it because, yes, the superhero movies, I think up till now have been a wise investment. There's certainly, they do well globally. You know, people get excited. They generate excitement about the next movie, which is a thing that they love. But you know, beware the one-crop economy, because when people get sick of them, they're going to have something to fall back on.
And real quick, I mean, not only are they huge money-making things, but you're right about this sort of next thing, because now, I think another time we had you on the show, Alonso, we laid out this chart that they've put together
the next
where
5
they've
years.
literally laid out the next 5 years and how they're linking. It's actually pretty cool how they're starting to link movies together, and obviously DC is doing some of this with Batman and Superman. How do you feel about the superhero movies in general?
Well, you know, now that it's put that way, I mean, of course, there's tons of them, and then I think they just need to stop naming them this Batman, this Spider-Man, that movie, because it does kind of get confusing to people who don't know the logistics and the business side of how everything keeps changing, and that, because the links are actually a little cool, especially for comic book fans, which I'm not one of.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes you one if you know the stories can link.
Sure.
It also makes you have to keep watching the next one. Because you're continuing a story, just like in comic books themselves.
Yeah, that was the Marvel Universe strategy in the first place, was that if you really want to know what was going on in Fantastic Four, you had to read this issue of the Avengers and that issue of, you know, Iron Fist or whatever, because they all linked in together.
Yeah.
And you would think that DC, not having sold off their characters the way Marvel did back in the day before these movies were so viable, it all being under the Time Warner roof, that they would have been the pioneers here, but no.
Yeah, they absolutely didn't. So finally, they're getting the Batman, Superman thing, but...
And their Justice
Wonder
League
Woman,
movie,
I guess,
the
is
Wonder
coming
Woman movie, the
around.
Aquaman movie, they're belatedly getting on the train.
Wait, so is Aquaman actually happening?
Oh yeah. No. It's a real thing. With Jason Momoa is going to do it.
Wow, I did not know that.
But yeah. But basically, what's happened? I think the weekend that the grosses for the first Avengers came out, the heads rolled at DC. Like, all right, let's get on it. And so now they're belatedly coming to the game.
So getting back to Spider-Man for a second, can we at least all agree that whatever they do with this reboot, considering that the first one, the Tobey Maguire one, was only about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that, and then we just had 2 other ones. Can we at least agree we don't need we don't need the origin story again. We don't need the Spider. We all know. Is there anyone that doesn't know how did Spider-Man become a spider? Spider-Man.
He was bitten, right?
By a
spider.
radioactive spider. So we don't need that. Can
Right.
they skip that part?
Yeah,
I would love that.
I thought comic books did that. They had tons of issues, right? So you can do more than just that one story. But I don't know. We've been introduced, and people who didn't need introduction have already done it.
To be fair, the Amazing Spider-Man, which is the Andrew Garfield ones, they were operating under a little different universe than the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy was. Which is not to say, yes, enough with the fucking spider bite. We get it. Move on. Take it as read. Let's go.
Like, can't they instead just, if you don't want to read the freaking comic book and somehow you missed it through all the movies, can't they just hand you a one sheet when you enter?
Previously
Bit by spider. Let's move on.
Previously on Homeland. Give me like 30 seconds at the beginning and boom, you know, everything you need to know.
Do you guys think that, I think the most underrated series with all of these is X-Men, actually, because not only I thought that the 3 originals were good and the 2 new ones, the Bryan Singer ones I thought were good, but that all the Wolverine, they all actually do link together. which is pretty amazing considering they've been in the future, they've been in the past, they've been in the present, and it all kind of comes together.
That's another one which, like Spider-Man, is Marvel jettisoned or to another studio.
If you can't get it right,
I know, before Disney came in to sort of run the whole show.
Yeah.
And the fact that Fox has not had to make a similar deal to sort of incorporate them into the sort of Avengers universe is that they're doing fine on their own. The movies sort of vacillate in quality, I think. There have been some good ones and some terrible ones. But you're right, they've managed to create a self-contained universe for themselves, so they don't need to go running back. I think the reason that Sony is reaching out to Disney here is because they have lost their way and these movies aren't working, and so they want to hitch their wagon onto something that is working.
It does seem like it's the storyline thing, because the X-Men, as you said, have been working and they don't have to reach out to others. Maybe only because they continue to create new stories with these same characters that you already like, which is okay. We want to see new stories. It's okay for that.
So to that point, so you were never a comic book guy?
No,
or when you were a kid, never?
No.
So one of the things that I think is interesting about this is I was into comic books when I was a kid, particularly Spider-Man, X-Men, a couple others. Do you think we're losing something, even as someone that wasn't into the comic book part, do you think we lose something with all, it's like we talk about with all the technology all the time, like kids just don't read them anymore. Like I know comic books still exist, but it's not like it was back in the day where
there's
your
still
imagination...
dudes our age.
And right, I take that back. There's plenty of people our age and older than me. I've got a couple comic books in my place. But do you think you lose something, just the reading aspect, where your imagination and you could actually turn a page and you didn't have to just see it once and then it disappears for 2 years?
It must be a mid-range group of kids that maybe they were still around when there were books, and now they're around when there's also the electronic book, and everyone's doing this. Because I have a 3-year-old kid, and he knows how to turn pages because we make him read books, or he actually has books at home on his shelf.
Yeah.
But there's still, when there's something electronic in front of them, we're completely going away from it. There's going to be a point where I think his generation, when he's 16, he'll be like, why would I pick up a comic book? I'm going to download it, and it's going to pop in front of my face now.
Right, like literally like a hologram.
Yeah, and it's just changed.
But at least they're still reading it. They're just not on dead trees, as they say. I mean, look, this stuff is always going to be changing, and I think that I don't think it's not these movies' fault that people aren't reading comic books.
Yeah.
People aren't reading comic books because people aren't reading, period, or they aren't buying. You look at the sales figures from the 60s at what X-Men issues sold, what even like romance comics that were aimed at girls sold, like that was a market, and now it's a different thing. But I think, if anything, the movies are probably sort of propping up what's left of the comic book industry, at least the mainstream superhero industry.
All right, mainstream superhero industry, you're going to be just fine. Alonso said it, so there you go.